Write me a poem, and let it be truth enough to raise a heart still beating out of an untended cage. For each beat to be a rapture remembered, with a down sweep of feathers and the muscle of wings. A lightness which says this beauty is freedom. Strokes as lifting as effortless bone, as breath abandoning weight to the cage's keep. Then let it release. Take flight from your hands in a cock-sparrow dash and a billow of dove, in the slow appraising climb of an eagle, wild in the sky and no longer seen. With what remains, this ink on the page, the scratchings of a captured bird, now free. Hello, hello Saz, hello people watching, thank you for joining. I've started throwing in a poem right from the start, which nobody has a chance to listen to the whole of. And it means when you tune in, there's something to listen to. And I'll repeat that one at the end. So no need to worry about not hearing it. It was called the Empty Aviary. Carlos, hello sir. Thank you for joining. I don't know if you're out there until you wave or say hello, and I'm very pleased when you do. It makes me very happy. I've been reading, you all know this probably, from the book Sabrina Bridge. And I think this session should take us to the end of it. And what comes after that, I'll have to think and see what's next. So I'm going to read from that, and I'm also going to read a couple from a surprise special guest who doesn't know that they're a special guest because I haven't told them about it. I'm going to read a couple of their poems from their book. I'll get to those in a minute. The first part of this session is heavily into the mythology. Many of the poems are tied to Worcester in some way, and I feel like Worcester, although it's firmly in the heart of England, inherits quite a lot of Welshness, if only from the water pouring into it through the Severn from the mountains. But yeah, when I was there I felt still quite a strong Welsh influence and a strong Celtic influence. And so 3 of the poems are going to be from the Mabinogion. But before that, I would like to read you this one, which is a version of the story of how the river, the Severn, flows through the city and how specifically it gained its name. The name that we have, I think, is a Victorian version of a Latin name, Sabrina. The older Celtic name, some will know, but I'm not familiar with. But the story essentially is that a Celtic king had a queen, but he also had a lover, hidden secret, and she became pregnant. And when that was found out, to protect her, the mother and daughter were hidden in caverns deep underground. I think finally when the queen died and the mother and child were brought out, the family of the queen took great exception and came to war against the king and ultimately defeated him. And the mother and Sabrina were both thrown into the river and drowned. And the river is said to be named for Sabrina, Sabrina into Severn. And so this is a version of that story called Sabrina. I bring you news of the mother's river's daughter, flaring with the burnish of the water's ruddy hair, tresses in the spirals, herding whirls, flurried strands, laughter on the beaches, reaches with a heavy, wrinkled grip. Born beneath rock, drawn from caves, this king's daughter learns to walk in darkness, wrinkly knees and serried palms upon the splashy floor, splattered yaps and milk cries. Little lips tasting pools dribbled small from stalactites, crinkled fingers for a better grip, laughter, ripples over lakes, wet black skipping under dank black. Only smoky love to show her mother's eyes, rubies flaring in the dark, her daughter's grin, the brightest thing there is, running gladly into deepness dark, the known unseen. Every inch of darkness ever known, and all the new gradations of the deep, the cracks within the smoothness of the rock, not thin enough to stop her fingers laughing, prying. When news came of her father's wife's passing, doors were opened high above. She wondered at the steps prepared by man, at the sponginess of wood, of metal blistered by her water's touch. Burst from the well, she breaks into epiphany of air, bubbles out of dankness, darkness banished by the first kiss of sun, the second kiss of warmth calling back the heavy wet. Screaming at the sun's rush in overjoy, sharp delight at the shaping rays of light falling lightly onto lines and beds and colours, light abounding in her cry and into day, light dancing like a falling thing. She overflows across the floor, running over prickly mats of straw, wearing toes and heels, roar over dry stone and wooden board, roaring over grass. Blades between her toes, rolling with the daisies and the buttercups. Sinking is a new thing, sinking into soil, little white rooty fingers catching earth beneath the nails and filling all the runnels of her palms' lines with dirt. When news came of her father's, wife's, brother's anger, an army raised, another come in league, the king moving swift to meet them each before they join. She wondered at the noise of the rolling siege machine, sparks from off the cavalry hooves. Here's the rain dripping from the cavern of the sky. Here's her looking for the stalactite and catching raindrops on her clothes, her tongue, her wide-flung eye. Fingers wrinkled, dancing as the earth swells, softens, takes the wheels of the urgent army, slows the feet of the crew as she throws her arms astride. Her bright white body sticking to the flimsy, thirsty cloth, shining through the cloud, cannot steal the fear, the sod, from the heavy soldiers sinking in their gear. A leaky cup, her father's army, soon dashed empty by the flood of foes, her father's head soon skimming over sward. She marvels at the red splashed of battle or the golden slaughter. No news was brought of what her father's wife's brother, her father's killer, had in mind for the harlot's daughter. She watched the red intoxicate the earth, fly in her father's hair, settle like a crimson robe upon the falling sun. Cold, windless falling under silver moon skies. Her mother stands, a stone wall, a single window showing out the fire, carried swift away by the roaring river, another new thing. and sunken down, drowned. Her father's lover's daughter, carried now by muscled arms and warm, ringed with gold, rippling all with iron blood and fired air, and flecked with brooding downy hair. Heat and sweat beneath her wrinkled grip carries her to the nameless river's edge. With eyes low as a cavern pool, he casts her high, every colour in the sky, into the rush. The touch of water brings her home, and into darkness. Deeper, dazzling, never known, this surge of water flowing. Fingers wrinkle, get a grip on every drop, wheeling in the feeling dance. I've spoken to Seven, and so have friends of mine spoken to her. Left offerings for her. Felt a kind wave as she passed by. Three poems now out of the Mabinogion, that book of Welsh legend that comprises what is left of Welsh mythology, where princes and wizards are told, stories are told about them who may once have been gods and goddesses. Amongst them is my namesake, Math ap Mathonwy, Prince of Gwynedd. A couple of these poems mention him. But there was a tale of a woman named Rhiannon, his niece, who for reasons of her own made an oath that her son would have no name, nor weapons and armour, nor any human wife, unless she gave them herself. But her brother, Goewin, another nephew of Math, thought he knew better and tricked her, bringing her son in disguise as a cobbler, tricking her into giving him a name, bringing her son disguised as a bard, tricking her into giving him a sword. And then to get around the provision against a human wife, he and Math made a woman out of flowers, Blodeuwedd, and gave that woman to him. The marriage didn't work out. She took another lover, she tried to kill him, and as punishment she was turned into an owl, condemned to fly in the forest. Her name is Blodeuwedd. And this is Blodeuwedd speaking, with her slant on the story. Maid of flowers, did you make me, wise Math ap Mathonwy, wizard prince of Gwynedd, to void a shamed mother's wrath? 3 times tricked, Rhiannon, did you see her and laugh? Once to gain a name, was it good, unknown, to bring the skilled shoemaker, his deathstone killing from a fair hand thrown, Gwydion giggling at his cleverness, his sister left alone? Twice to gain a sword, to bring a false tale of siege with a false bard, her son, to regale his very song betrayal. She buckled on the blade herself, oh no, you could not fail. A tinged sharp bequeathed to save her life, 3 times spoke the angry words, neither knife nor shield nor name he'd have, unless bestowed his mother by, nor any human wife. So, for your niece's son, your sister's son's sister's son, you gathered oak, chestnut, broom for maiden's hair, hawthorn too, 9 wild flowers, and named me Blodeuwedd, the earth in bloom, given in gift to Llw givers then, whom death would never visit, only when, and his mother's mind scorned again. Did you think I would not dare take my own choice of men? Now I will screech and howl in the dark wood, my wide flower face bright under night's hood, take the mouse and vole for food, scare the other birds with the scathing glower of my mood. Though you may deem thyself a woman's maker, formed of flowers, letting not a harsh wind shake her for her beauty's sake, be wise, nath ap Mathonwy. Her choice is never yours to take. Blodeuwedd. Another tale in the Mabinogion speaks of Prince Pool, who each year at midwinter would go to a burial mound to watch for a wonder, and they would not eat their meal until a wonder had been seen. And this particular midwinter, it was reported the sight of a most beautiful woman riding peacefully on a most wonderful horse. But no matter how hard you might get on your horse and pursue it, no matter how hard you drove it or galloped, and she riding at this quiet pace, it was impossible to catch her. Until, of course, Poole had the idea of asking her to wait. Her name is Rhiannon, and this is the poem of that tale. Riding at unhurried pace a white horse, she clad in gold, me a race behind caught in a blind chase, her with gleam on cloth and hair, undisturbed by wind or travel. I despair, bite hard upon a blighted air. She, seated tall and sedate, untroubled by the miles, I close to dead in haste, curse the waste ahead. She at ease, through summer grove and ever-banked moors, lightly stepped. I move, screaming limbs and dreaming love. Steady on the mountainside and quiet as the valley, her sigh. Ride I an avalanche, staunch pride, and gentle as the last wave over sand, she light as spray, my craving her or else my early grave. Horse and rider lose their way, she alone disappearing like the day. Lady cried at last, please stay. On the far road, she disappeared in mist, turns into a voice severe, fiercely present. She is here. Rhiannon. She did stay, and they did love, and they married and had a son. And that's told in another poem not included in this book. But the third poem from the Mabinogion that is in the book is the Tale of Goewin. Warn you that this poem does reference sexual violence, but more on the punishment for it than the deed. It's I don't know, is it so much now, but certainly it has often been used as a defence by the raper, that somehow they could not help themselves, that somehow they lost control, that it was the animal in them. And that's essentially the argument between all the questions of, well, what was she wearing, what did you do, was she junk, that sort of thing. That abysmal lie that says the man is not in control of himself. Goewin. My name is Math. I must, to keep my life, rest my feet in a girl's lap, both willing and no one's wife, unless there be inclemency of war. With you, Goewin, I remain gently held, the land secure. But sister's son, Gilfafwy, you have caused the fighting, calls me away, with your brother Gwydion, forced the doors and took the maid, against her say, all heard her shouts of protest. Goewin, I ask with me stay, to take the might of Gwynedd for your own, queen of my land, queen of Math, that right for you may be done. Too clever, Gwydion. What is to do? To mete out vengeance over each your false brother and you. You pair. But pare you down and pair you up as hart and buck, boar and sow, each to bear the other's pup. You're turned to hind, with hide of fired gold, your brother to stag, chasing over hill till sun is fold. Your brother is turned to sow in woods wild, rooting now with you as boar to litter a piglet child. Turn you next to bitch, your high silver yelp calls your brother wolf, howl through the mountain tops till sun is whelped. You came to me holding your own want higher. If you must burn, I'll make you yearn for what you least desire. The punishment given by Math to Gilfafwy and Gwydion for the attack on Goewin. Right, gonna step away from Sabrina Bridge for a minute because I wanted to bring in a special guest who doesn't know that I'm doing this, so I hope she doesn't mind. But it's a friend, Alison Jones, no relation, and this is from her pamphlet Heartwood. And then she has another one published more recently called Omega, and this is the one that I own, and so I want to read two poems from that. I touch a little bit on the theme of the natural world and the mysticism inbound with it. So the first of the two poems I'd like to read from her, first is called Hollow Hills. We live in the country, so we hang out in fields with bottles and guitars, capoed a half-tone higher. Picks like teeth shining as blue skies fall into night. Side by side, handprints pressing the place into us. Blossoms dropping on red earth. We are only visitors, exiled with the wind, hair flying like prayers. With watercolour animals surfing green waves. Fingers pluck the time we know, beached inland with a pool of sky, looking down through layers of trampled ancestors. Music reveals the heart, lifts us into sleep, beneath the hollow hills, where we are safe. Nobody will harm us. And the second is called Promises. Behind a fallen willow, his heart rattles in her hands. Copper light grazes her fingers. Go ahead, he thinks. It is yours. They are heavy with summer, like shade-sheltering deer, senses always cocked for danger, ready to open their breath amongst tree roots, to shout the earth from the confines of footfall. Go ahead, he thinks. Take it. She will come near enough to him to catch the scent of his mother, who quietly prays and raises him closer, who lifts her eyes to the sky. Her hands clasp the smallest measure. The wetness rhymes beneath her fingers. Orange morning framing them, bending together in the carcass of a tree, the way the hunted have hidden for thousands of years, reclining, drinking their fill. I really feel that the sense of two people making a beginning together in both of those. And as I said, is Heartwood by Alison Jones. A neighbour to me now, though as I say, no relation. The other day I read two poems by my friend Jenny Hope, and this poem of mine is written for her. Forest poet. He never found her person in the woods, but saw the signals of her passing by. The sister's gaze she had settled on the trees, her tread within the brook, the pebbles sigh, her kiss upon the yew, the owl's distress, the song she'd given the hawk crow to sing, the grove, found only where she'd slipped her dress in tryst with her lover, the forest wind. Only this he'd found, a shelter of stick, ash, oak and elm upon the leafy floor, a woven house, of branch embound with twig, of birch bark, holly green and sycamore. Knotted words with willow stitched, interspersed with elder rhymes, to make her Heartwood verse. The forest poet. Got 3 or 4 more to read till the end of the book. Most of them fairly short. This is the longest of them. It's quite a curious one. written just by listening to see what words followed on word without necessarily knowing where they're going to go. And not knowing quite what to call it either, I called it Quartet, although it is in 5 parts. In silence I came to the whispering cave, found echoes hung within the scathing void, a seething emptiness, with voices brave and rare, clamouring for a turn of tide. "It is the meeting place," he cried, "of dreams from the deep and the rocks that will wreck them. The place where words abound are put to screams in dancing bows the better to forsake them. Words writ in sand," he said, "will fade and pass," spilling gasoline across the cavern floor. "I'll set a blaze to melt the sand to glass, and stop the tide-spun poet writing more." I saw the shattered dreamer with his fear applauded by those gathered around to hear. I came with reverent step till a chaste well, churning vertigo, sat upon its lip. Light defeated, compelling secrets tell their stories, rising from the river's grip. "The water's foul," she promised. "Tip it out your cup. Too many bodies stumbled in and where left their smear. Too many caught in drought or solid flood will let the waters thin. Waters drawn unwilling from the deep must," she said, "have in them wicked iron, red with warning skies. The chalice words will rust themselves away, their golden liquid bled." The water-bearer sank beside her wilted urn, too weary now to from her watchers turn. I came in peace to the blistering sky, placed my ear soft to the lips of the wind, whose easing chatter kissed, bit, and full shy flew once more, where off hours silence dinned. "Do not believe," the raven called, "the truth of noise. Veracity is rare. Be sure that bones will make a song when shaken. Tooth will draw a scream from out the septic maw. I make a meal of that most carrion sound. The poet's dead and empty phrases line my peckish gut. Easy pickings, not found where prayers bow to tear the sound divine." The priestly blackbird swooped to have my eye. I left him choking on a vision dry. At last I found my way to the tower's height, a vault on vaults, and steeped within the view were songs of sacred chemistry, alight with falling comets scarring on the blue. "The word is lost," I heard the heavens moan, "and it was good, though now it falls away amongst so many tongues. The shepherd shorn of psalms to plead my case on Judgment Day. What use is but one word," they cried, "when time is not enough to have it said? reduce the stark vocabulary more, and rhyme shall go extinct, nor angels' wings produce. The Secretariat had copies read of every word, wrote prophet on its head. At poem's end, the keeners stood about and cast their ash upon the closing line. Lowered to the pit, the last crazy shout of angry flesh, thought on heat, tasted wine. Always hid beneath, the buried sang, falling through the holes and rising with the moon's lack, to gamble under eaves and still our calling within the darkest spaces at your back. I shift the earth to fill my rotted frame, make puddles full of night and liquid shade. The virgin stone that never bore my name exhales and trembles, seeing justice paid. Nor cave, nor well, nor sky, nor tower's clip shall tell or bid the next word from my lip. Are you supposed to admit that you don't understand what a poem's about? Or however you do, but you don't. You won't be able to spell it out in any sort of form of logic. Not like most of the ones in here, I don't know exactly what. But that one was still a touch of a mystery to me. 1, 2, 3 short poems, each about a minute long. And then a reprise of the Empty Aviary. Carlos, I shaved the beard off because I had an audition earlier over Zoom. A most bizarre, strange experience. You can usually tell that if I'm clean shaven it means I'm either working or I've just applied for work, otherwise the beard comes back. It leaves me looking much more like this character in the next poem, the Beggared Troubadour. A man may have too many loves, and yet one more might bring him home, might let him know that in the ragged days he did not miss the door, the silhouette wrapped in fire's glow. On road so far behind he'd never reach so much as faintest memory of where that crossing stood, nor have the feeling hands to touch her softest skin or thrilling hair. Upon another threshold, knuckles boned and raw, no reason for the huddled man to be let in, to tell of loves he's had before, and lack the means himself to stand. A wind-soaked beggar, broken-stringed across the path, no gleam upon the hill to bring him home at last. I think after that one is a poem again of balancing hope with despair. As does this one, the second one called Hope. I have lived long nights, long years alone, embraced them all, my many loves, and took to wife a silent, dull and senseless one, with fingers prizing out a second look. In trying not to know you, kept your name even from myself, slipped it silently into the river, into the dark flame, turning my taloned shoulder like a key. Ignoring even your absence. Drawing your signs like venom to be sucked and spat. Flooring with a shoulder slam the roaring bear within my blood, knocked desire flat. Still, you are there. A breath not taken in. But wait for me to fill my lungs again. Hope. And though we are in the middle of winter, here's one of June. So if you imagine some golden sunlight pouring in through your window, as it shall do by and by. June, first thing in the morning. This girl of gold slips quiet through my window, drips kisses on my eyes, and lying warm upon my skin, entices from the shadows a whimpered heart, and somehow free of harm. Another night has passed, long hours spent within her absence, coldly in the dark. A naked man of bone and nail, intent on every knife fight, cry and fox's bark. Pulling wings from every minute, tying crackers to the shirt tails of the moon, drowning hours in a bag, defying sleep's administration and calming tune. Upon my shabby bed, neglected lane, surprised as always, find her come again. June, first thing in the morning. So all there is to do is to read the very last poem, which I'd actually read at the beginning, from Sabrina Bridge by me. This again is a special guest, Alison Jones, reading that from Heartwood. I'll be back again in a day and a bit, day after tomorrow. Not sure what poems I'll read, but I shall read some, and hopefully have a special guest as well. It may be that I'll be doing them via YouTube, but I hope that I can still share them to the Facebook Live as I'm doing it, but I'm experimenting, so we'll see how it works out. Thank you very much for joining me and listening. Lovely to see you there. Keep well wherever you are, keep safe. And I'll leave you with this one, The Empty Aviary. Write me a poem, and let it be truth enough to raise a heart still beating out of an untended cage. For each beat to be a rapture remembered, with a down sweep of feathers and the muscle of wings. A lightness that says, this beauty is freedom. Strokes as lifting as effortless bone, as breath, abandoning weight to the cage's keep. Then let it release. Take flight from your hands in a cock-sparrow dash and a billow of dove, in the slow appraising climb of an eagle, wild in the sky and no longer seen. With what remains This ink on the page, the scratchings of a captured bird, now free.